Well, everyone, let's finish this little marathon of ours off. Well, I don't really need any introductions. You all know who this guy is, so let's just get right into this. Superman. Real name Kal-El, and given the name Clark Kent by his Earth parents. He's a superhero from DC Comics. Actually, a superhero is kind of an understatement. He's basically the superhero. I mean, Superman. That's like the definition of a superhero name. It's literally, he's a man, but he's super. Not to mention, if you were to picture the idea of a superhero, then odds are you'll think of something similar to Superman. The colorful costume, the cape, the logo. Yep, he's got it all, and he's basically the reason superheroes do those things. Superman is a Kryptonian from the planet Krypton. Once a highly advanced planet, it ended up being destroyed, with the reason why changing depending on the story. Early on, it died of old age, but later on, it's usually destroyed by some sort of bad guy. But there was one couple who wanted their baby to live, so they sent him on a rocket and blast him off into the cosmos, where he ends up on Earth and gets raised by the Kents, who instill in him a great sense of heroism and honor, and teach him to be a good person. And thus, Superman was born. As for his powers, well, he's had a lot of them over the years. It's actually kind of a meme in the comics community that it seems like Superman got a new power whenever they wanted to sell more copies, but the most basic Superman has flight, laser eyes, X-ray vision, super strength, near invulnerability, super breath, which means he can blow strong wind from his mouth, and sometimes it can even be used to freeze things, and super speed, both with running and flying. For weaknesses, Superman's main one is kryptonite, a green mineral from Krypton that got scattered throughout the universe when it got destroyed. Kryptonite has a special radiation that is super deadly to Kryptonians. Exposure makes them weak and lethargic, and if exposed to it long enough, it can prove fatal. But it's not just green kryptonite. There's also red kryptonite, which has a completely random effect when exposed to Kryptonians. So when they are exposed to it, really, anything could happen to them. They could turn taller, they could get a beard. Really, if you can think about something that can happen to someone, then the red kryptonite can make it happen. Black kryptonite either makes you evil or manifests your evil side as a physical entity, depending on what version you're talking about. Gold kryptonite causes a Kryptonian to permanently lose their powers. And pink kryptonite also exists and will not be elaborated on. Kryptonite is easily Superman's most famous weakness. In fact, kryptonite has become a synonym for weakness. That's how famous it is. But he has other weaknesses. Another way you can take him down is to use magic, as despite his great defenses, he doesn't actually have any defenses against magic. So he's just as susceptible to curses as anyone else. Some people frame this as if he's like weak to magic, as if being around magic objects will make him go, "Oh no, I'm dying." But no, it doesn't weaken him, he just isn't any more immune to magic than anyone else, if you get what I mean. Another thing, he is still susceptible to supersonic noises since, well, he still hears after all. And plus, given his enhanced senses, it's probably even more painful to him than an average person. And finally, Superman's powers comes from the fact that Earth has a yellow sun, which causes Kryptonians to gain a massive power boost when exposed to their rays. But on the flip side, the rays given off by a red star cause a Kryptonian to lose their powers and basically just become guys. So yeah. If you get him near a red star, you could probably kill him. In the earliest incarnation of Superman, he was actually a bad guy, and was just a human with telekinesis. The story was published in 1933 and didn't really go anywhere, but clearly the creators liked that name, because 5 years later, they reused it for Superman's official debut, Action Comics #1. In his story, I say his story because early DC Comics contained several stories of different characters. Anyway, in Superman's story, it's mostly an origin story of Superman, but there's a healthy dose of good old-fashioned, early on we didn't know what we were talking about, so we introduced a bunch of things that would never be brought up again moments. Like, for example, Superman was raised by an orphanage. Secondly, he was a lot more open to hurting someone in order to get information out of them. No, not hurt supervillains. He would just straight up hurt you if he felt like he could get information out of you. He was pretty violent early on. And finally, and most importantly, he was a lot less OP than he'd be later on. Here, he was basically just a really strong guy. Sure, he could lift heavy stuff, but he couldn't actually fly. Yeah, early on he couldn't actually fly, he could only jump high. So if you've ever wondered why they say Superman can leap tall buildings, this is why. I mean, yeah, if he can fly, of course he can. I think anyone who can fly can go over a tall building. That's kind of a stupid thing to say. He also wasn't as durable early on. Sure, he was immune to things like bullets, but it was stated that he could still be hurt by a bomb or things like that. And also, Krypton didn't have a name yet. It was just the unnamed planet Superman was from. But the comic was a hit, and it was clear that DC had a star on their hands, so they made Superman a franchise. And over the next few decades, Superman's appeared in countless comics and has fought in countless battles over the years. He's a primary player in the Justice League. Basically, every hero in existence seems to have done battle with him at some point. He died once and then came back. Really, the Man of Steel has seen it all, done it all. But part of what made Superman so famous is just how everywhere he is. One of the first big adaptations was a radio show. If you don't know what that is, basically before TV came out, radio was, in addition to being used for music like nowadays, people would also tell stories over the radio, and Superman had a show like this. In fact, this show is actually where Kryptonite came from, fun fact. Shortly after his comic came out, Superman appeared in a theatrical series of shorts by the animators known as the Fleischer Brothers, the same guys who made Popeye. And these shorts massively impacted how Superman would be seen. For one, he could fly now, which was apparently easier to animate than jumping high. It's also what created the idea of Superman changing his identity in a phone booth, as he actually basically never did this in the comics. In fact, one comic even pointed out that it's kind of hard to change clothes in a phone booth since, they're covered in glass, so anyone could easily just see inside and see that hey, that guy's putting on Superman's outfit. Yeah. And of course, there is the live-action film series from the 70s to the 80s, 1, 2, 3, and 4, Quest for Peace. A film where Superman gets rid of all the nukes, but then the nukes create a new villain and Superman has to fight him. I would say that's stupid, but can we really say comic books are any more sane? And eventually this series got a reboot years later in Superman Returns, in which only the first 2 films are canon. Then we got another Superman film, Man of Steel in 2013, which was the start of DC's cinematic universe, which is a whole tangled mess I don't want to get into. But Superman played big roles in the films Batman v Superman and Justice League after this. On TV, Superman's featured in many TV shows over the years, and is a main player in other DC projects. But unfortunately, one medium that Superman just cannot seem to get done right in is video games. I don't know why, but Superman cannot get a good game to save his life. One of his games is Superman 64, which is often considered to be one of, if not the worst games ever made. Yeah. But even ignoring that, Superman games are often just plain bad, plain and simple. But surprisingly, he's had a lot more luck when he's not the title character, as when they just make games featuring a bunch of DC guys, he tends to fare much better. So I guess it's only when they're exclusively working with the Superman IP they run into issues. As for Soup's overall reception, I don't need to tell you that he's one of the most iconic and beloved characters in fiction. Everyone and their grandma knows who he is, and he's not going anywhere anytime soon. And hey, first Superman comic has become public domain in a few years, and I'm sure that'll open the door to plenty more creative outlets. Or it's just going to be used to make poorly made media that only exists to bank in on brand recognition, since the brand is now available to everyone. And they're not actually going to put any effort into actually making it feel like it had a reason to be that IP, and instead it's just going to be another interchangeable slasher movie or something like that. That's the real issue of the whole public domain horror movie trend. They never actually do anything with the characters. They're clearly just there for name recognition, but you could literally swap these guys out for anyone else and the movie would be exactly the same. It's always just, ooh, a kid's character has a knife and he kills people. Oh, cool. You mean like the 1,000 other movies about people with knives going on a killing spree? Oh, what's that? It's Mickey Mouse who's doing it? Oh, congratulations, here's your gold star. Must have taken you hours to think of that, you lazy hacks. My guess, once Superman becomes public domain, there's going to be a slasher movie about Superman becoming real, and he grabs a knife and kills everyone in a way that makes as much gore as possible because, hey, these dime a dozen slasher movies feel almost machine-generated and feel so passionless and are clearly only made for a quick buck because people just can't stop watching these movies despite them all being exactly the same. And sorry, got on a bit of a soapbox there. I just wanted to say that that's the real issue with these movies, and it's not just, oh no, they ruined my childhood, which seems to be the issue that most people have, but I don't agree with that. I think the real issue is just how interchangeable they are. You know what? Since I'm on a soapbox, let me get higher on that. I want to say that this isn't just about Superman, but for most superheroes, and it's the idea that superheroes are only interesting if they're morally gray or realistic. You know, it's the kind of people who seem to want every superhero to be like Batman. No disrespect to him, but look, not every superhero needs to be freaking Batman. And I'm sick of him being held up like he's some gold standard of how superheroes should be. Actually, no, it's not even they wanted to make him like Batman. They want to make him like their version of Batman. He's just he's a loner who's very violent, and they wear great costumes and they never smile, and they're, yeah, isn't that so awesome? Look, characters should not all be alike, because that would be very boring. It's good to have diversity in personalities and roles and things like that. Batman is not the gold standard that all characters should strive to be, okay? Okay. Then you have the other trend of Superman, and it's, what if Superman, but he's evil? Look, I get where this comes from. Superman's a powerful guy, so if he was evil, then it'd be pretty destructive, but I hate how this mindset is clearly from people who only seem to care about a character's power. They never care about anything else. It's like whenever they watch a piece of media, they're just like, whoa, he just punched a mountain, something, something, a tall building level, blah, 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 wins against a Perry, or whatever versus debaters are saying these days. But he's a good guy, so that's boring. We gotta make him evil to be cool. We gotta make people afraid of his power so I can win petty online arguments. I mean, because that's what's cool. And I hate how whenever this happens in official DC media, wherever Superman goes nuts, it's always just an excuse for more, whoa, look how cool Batman is moments. You know, the reason that I like superheroes and I find them cool, and the reason that a lot of people like them, is because of their humanity at the end of the day. Despite all their powers, superheroes, they're still just some guys. Hopes, dreams, families, friends, all that. They're not just cool because, whoa, he just punched a star across the Milky Way galaxy, beats this other guy, no diff, whatever, claps or whatever, one shots, other guy I don't like, whoa. It's their humanity that makes them so beloved. The fact that they put their own lives at risk for those who can't help themselves. The fact that no matter how impossible the odds are, they will keep going, because if they don't, people could get hurt. That's what makes them interesting. It's not just them having them run around in black suits while never smiling because, hey, that's realistic. Okay, that's enough venting. That's all for this superhero marathon. I left a pinned comment of characters I considered having in the series, and hope to see you guys next time. Next time, we're talking about some big guys that hang out with a big guy, if you catch my drift.